Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing Scott Harding. Scott, how you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored.
No, this is seriously an honor for me. It's a great pleasure to have you here. But before we talk about why you're here, I want to let the people that don't know you get to know you a little bit. You are the host and creator of the You Run podcast. Can you tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about what you do with the podcast?
yeah, no problem at all. So we've got various different wings of the You Run podcast. We've got a horror movie review, we've got a horror movie news, we've got a YouTube, we've got a true crime. And it's one of those things. I started a podcast just before we went into lockdown. It's something I wanted to do for ages. And then I got the bug. And then I was doing horror movie review and that was going well. And then people were going, "Do you like true crime?" And I hate true crime, but one of my close friends loves true crime. And she's like, "Well, that's a thing. We'll do it together. You hate it, I love it, and it'll work." And it's kind of just grown arms and legs, and it's become this ginormous thing now where we've got a network of 10 other podcasts that are in with us. And I don't know, it started really small as like a hobby for just me to share what I thought about horror movies. And now it's just a thing now. Like it's a big part of my life now.
And that's amazing. And I'm with you. I'm not a big true crime guy. I always gotta say this when I say that I'm not against true crime, guys. I love my daughter's a huge true crime podcast fan. And I hope that there's an audience for it. It's just too sad for me. Like that's real life. Horror movies, I know they're fake. I can, watch those and I feel the vindication of knowing nobody's really getting hurt. But when I hear about, little kids having their dad shove them into an oil container and take their lives, that to me is
Yeah.
too real and it's too much. I can't handle that type of stuff. I get physically angry and I want to find the guy myself because I don't know how you could hurt your little babies, man. Like it's something I'll never ever understand. So um but the good thing about the podcast too, guys, is you don't have to go far to find
No.
that because I have all the links for the podcast as well as I have Scott's social media links right down in the description. So make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube. Make sure you're giving a 5-star review on your podcasting platforms. Make sure you're following on all your podcasting platforms. That way you can hear not only the horror movie reviews, the true crime things that they do as well. So you said you started right before the lockdown, which congratulations, you're still doing this. A lot of people thought once lockdown happened, they'd start a podcast. It would go forever and it would be easy. And a lot of them figured out that it was not. So when you're doing something like true crime, which is something that's not really your bread and butter, how do you still maintain that level of excitement and genuineness? Genuinity? I don't know what the word would be, but how do you stay genuine when you're talking about something that you're not a huge fan of?
Uh, if I'm honest, it's my genuine reactions to it, and they're not necessarily very enthusiastic. So the way those episodes are framed is I kind of run us through the facts of what's happening. And it's a very opinionated show. It's not very much. Lots of true crime podcasts I find are very by the numbers, sort of eerie background music as they tell you the story. We
Right.
are very different to that, whereas we'll tell you what happened, we'll go through the facts, and then we discuss about how that makes us feel and what we think should have happened and how it could have been prevented. And we look at all the things around it as well, and that makes it more digestible to me. I couldn't
Sure.
just sit there and read off these horrific, heinous crimes and then go, "Thanks very much for listening. Have a great day." I can't do that. I haven't got it in me. I need to talk about it and digest it. And like Heather, my co-host, is really good. She's really got really good understandings of psychology and things like that. So she frames some of their motives and things in different ways where I see things in different lights. It's a really enlightening show for me to be part
Yes.
of, but it's also really hard, especially like the prep for true crime. Like for horror movie review, it's watch the movie, get your notes together, you're good to go. With true crime, it's you need to look at everything they've done, and then you need to fact check things, and then you need to look at the trial, and there's so much more to it, and that is painful. That some of the cases that really hurts doing that when you read the things these people have done, and in some cases have walked away unpunished for the things they've done is hard.
It's an absolute putrid way to live your life. I can't imagine hurting anyone like that.
No.
I can't say I could never hurt anybody, because if it came down to my wife and kids or someone else, it's probably going to be someone else. No one's
Yeah.
going to break in my house and walk out unscathed, but a child, something like that. There's just I can't, especially when it's a child losing their life or child SA type stuff. I can't. My skin feels hot. I feel like I want to choke someone. Like, I just can't do it. So much respect to you, even though it's not your bag. You're still willing to go through with it. So kudos to you, my friend. And like I said, guys, make sure you're checking the podcast out, because if this is your thing, they go really, like you said, they're going to go into the trial. They're going to get into all the facts. They fact check their stuff. You're going to learn a whole lot about these things if you go and check out the podcast. So make sure you're doing that. Leave them a 5-star review and let the world know why they're the shit. So, in order for you, Scott, to have a podcast that's horror related, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now, my friend, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what it was that got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Scott, the first horror movie you watched was
Child's Play, the original Child's Play. And
still to this day my favorite horror franchise.
It's one of the most consistent. It's got a couple of weird ones in there, but on the whole, it's pretty consistent and still consistent with its storyline now, even with the series. It's still following the same timeline. It's not jumped off and done other things. We had the reboot, but that was completely separate. But it is probably one of the few that is a straight run timeline, start to finish, and you can watch them all in order and it still makes sense.
Yep. See, for me, it's Evil Dead, and I think Scream and Child's Play will always be the top three for me. Child's Play is always one, and then 2, 3 they can kind of interchange. Child's Play will always be one. But do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
Oh, I was really young, so I'm of the age where VHS stores were a religion on a weekend. So you'd go and visit grandparents or whatever you'd do on a Saturday. I was probably 6 or 7, and then you'd go to the video store and you'd look at the shelves for hours. And parents back in the 80s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s were not like we are today. There was very much oh, it's got a doll on the front, that must be okay. And that was about all the attention they paid. So this VHS got picked up. I went home, I sat down, I put it in the VCR in my bedroom, because I was lucky enough to have one in my bedroom. And I started watching it, and within minutes I was downstairs screaming that I needed help, I needed assistance. And my dad actually come and sat and watched it with me. He didn't get me to turn it off, which if it was one of my kids, I'd probably be like, you shouldn't be watching that. But it was a different time. He's like, yeah, that's cool. You want to watch it? I'll sit and watch it with you. And yes, it was that moment, sort of that bonding with my dad, that led to us together watching quite a lot of horror movies that I probably shouldn't have watched anywhere near that age.
See, I'm one of the people that I still let my kids watch horror, but my daughter, the youngest, she's 4, and I explained to her, this is not real, this is fake, just so she knows, you can't go out and hurt people. That's not real. And I just wanted to give her the education of knowing the difference between fantasy and reality, and teaching her, yes, this is a movie. Yes, it's entertaining. Yes, the anxiety is fun, but this is not real life. You can't go hurt people. And if someone hurts you, you don't get a do-over. We can't hit rewind. So, I use it as like an educational thing for my kids. I'm not going to show them like the hills have eyes or nothing like that, but like my daughter loves Megan. She loves the first Child's Play, things like that, gateway horror type things. But
Yeah.
Child's Play, especially the OG, for us at a very young age. You and I think I'm a little older than you, but right around the same age. And this was a movie that, at this point in our lives, action figures and things like that were all the rage. That's what we did. We played with our toys, and to see an evil one come to life was very terrifying. So I think that's why this movie affected a lot of us that watched it for the first time at such a young age. But do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
There was a couple of scenes like early on with the bits with Charles Lee Ray that really got to me, like when he puts himself into the doll. A day to eat Emperor. Give me the power, I beg of you. Like when I watch it back now, and you've got like almost that Star Wars style force lightning in the sky, I kind of have a chuckle. But at the time, that was scary. But the scene that got me, and my dad was watching me with it at this point, and I was done. I was like, hands in the air, I can't do this anymore, is when the mum is screaming at Chucky.
I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire! You stupid bitch! You filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
And his coming alive and being so angry and so aggressive, and me seeing this tiny little doll effectively overpower an adult. Like,
Yeah.
up until that point, he hadn't been sort of physically scary in any real way. He was menacing, but he hadn't really you hadn't really seen that complete meltdown. But when he had it, it terrified me. And it's one of those that, you're right, at the age we were, we had action figures and toys and dolls and stuff that were all over our room, and you'd lay in bed at night and look at things and go, oh, is it going to come to? And it was a genuine fear, because we were kids and I didn't know better, and it scared the life out of me for a long time.
Trying to catch him, hiding under the blanket, and then being like, oh,
yeah,
did you move? Stuff like that. Totally agree with you, man. I did that stuff too. Like, and it really, really did help. But we talked about which scene affected you the most, but what was your favorite scene from Child's Play?
My favorite scene is actually a throwaway scene. It's a complete throwaway moment. It's the moment when he's in the elevator and the two people come up the stairs and they go,
ugly doll.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
It cracks me up. Even now when I watch it, I still laugh. It's just such a pointless throwaway scene, but it's that scene where his personality was born that was then dragged into all of the other movies.
Right, because Charles Lee Ray / Chucky he's not funny in this first movie really at all.
No.
He plays it pretty straight. But that one line, it is a fuck you, and just the way he says it, like, so dry and bland. So again, one of my favorite parts in the whole movie too. That part's genius and I love it. So obviously, as horror fans, we love the kills. The kills. A lot of fun, always about the kills. But this movie doesn't have a lot. They are few and far between. But every single one is extremely effective. Which was the kill that stuck with you the most from this film?
It is actually the demise of Chucky. The ending of this movie, how they think they've taken him down and he's all scorched and burnt, and then he's up again. Like, that whole segment, it's like a montage of mini kill scenes as they try various things to take him down. And I really like the fact that he is so resilient in this doll body, because you see him get effectively killed at the beginning and it's nothing. He gets shot and it's done. And they really made him super powered in the doll.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was
just one arm trying to choke.
Yeah, it's like that final sequence. And even when they've destroyed him and you look at it and you go, I know he's not dead, because they made him so you believed he couldn't be stopped. And even when they stop him, you go, I'm not convinced. And I was right as a kid, because he's had loads more movies and a series since.
And thank God they did, which, kind of brings you to my next question. The remakes, reboots, it's all the rage right now. They did do this in 2019, the Child's Play remake. Did you watch that? And if so, were you a fan?
I did watch it, and there was elements of it I thought they'd done really, really well. Casting Mark Hamill as the voice of Chucky, or as Buddy, was really, really good. I think he's an amazing voice actor. I think the premise change of making him AI was really clever. And had they called it something else, I think it would have been a huge smash. And Megan is a prime example of that. Like, Megan and Child's Play 2019 are almost the same movie, just one tried to rebadge itself as a Child's Play movie, where Megan went and done its own thing. It's not a bad movie. There are issues with it, I think, mainly around the look of the doll, but the premise of it, the fact that he's learning from the kids, and like the kids are teaching him like Tupac and about stabbings, and he's picking that up and deeming that that's okay. Like, all of that concept of like AI learning and learning bad habits from us, I think is fabulous.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have badged it as Child's Play.
You took the words out of my mouth. I've said so many different times, if they would have called that movie Buddy from the world of Child's Play, it would have made a whole lot of difference in my eyes. Like, you didn't have to name the doll Chucky, because Chucky is Charles Lee Ray, and at least they were respectful enough to not do a Charles Lee Ray thing. But Chucky's Charles Lee Ray, just Buddy from the world of Child's Play could have been a whole different doll. And then we could have got the Buddy Bear. Like, we could have got so many different offshoots of that movie because it would have been a little bit more successful, in my opinion. And I do love that movie. I think it's great. I don't like the look of Chucky, but I laugh at that movie. I think the kills in that movie are brutal. So, yeah, I am a fan of it. And while we're talking about fans of the Child's Play franchise, the movie, your original, was the first one. And this is an ever-expanding franchise now, including the TV show. But what is your favorite film in the whole franchise?
I've got a real soft spot for 3.
Yes!
And
Yes!
I don't know what... I know 3 is, from a critical standpoint, one of the worst in the franchise. But I just love it. I'm so on board with... basically Chucky in the wild is how I see it. It's like Chucky's been unleashed now and he's got so much more scope and things he can do and where he can go. I think it's just such a good concept. And I'll be honest, 2 I liked, but again, he was very contained, like in the factory setting. This idea of him being out in the world is so much more fun. So many more people for him to interact with. And I also like, is it Cult or Curse where he's in the asylum?
Cult.
Cult. That I really like Cult as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like most of the franchise. There's only one in the franchise that just rubs me the wrong way, and I can't get to grips with it. It just annoys me.
Is it Seed?
It is Seed.
That's how it's my least favorite in the franchise, but I think it has redeeming qualities. I think the kills in that one are fantastic. Seeing John Waters in the film was great, but the trans representation was done really shitty, which I think Don's tried to make up for in the show. I think they've done a lot better in the show. It's just a little too goofy for my liking. I don't mind the film, and I think if you're making a franchise that has as many movies as the Child's Play franchise, and the worst one you did was Seed of Chucky, you've definitely done something right. So I agree with you, and I also agree with you. 3 is the best. I love Child's Play 3. That movie is so special to me. It means the world to me. So to hear someone else that actually digs that film, that's pretty sick to me. So we talked about your first horror movie being Child's Play and what that means to you. But here for a little bit, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite scary movie, Scott? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
See, this is really hard because whenever I say the movie, so many people go, "Oh, that's not a horror movie." My favorite horror movie of all time is Jaws.
How the hell is that not a horror movie? Like,
it's still a debate. I've done top 10 lists and things like that, and I put Jaws at the top, and so many people are like, well, that's not really a horror movie. It's like, it is. It's almost the foundation for slasher movies as a whole.
I was gonna say, how isn't it? Like, I also get people that tell me Jurassic Park isn't a horror movie, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that's a total horror movie. Even like the raptors and the kitchen, like, it's all horror, and they're breathing on the window. That's total slasher trope right there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'll fight to the death, because I've heard people say Alien isn't a horror movie. I've heard people say Jaws isn't a horror movie. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, holy shit, man. Like, I've heard some crazy things, but that about tops it. And Jaws is one of two movies ever in the history of the world that I say absolutely 100% will never, ever, and should never, ever be remade. And Jaws, Back to the Future. Don't ever touch either one of those movies. And every remake could have some type of merit to it. I don't believe Jaws or Back to the Future. I don't think you could bring any type of merit to either one of those films. I think they're perfect the way they are. Leave them alone. Don't touch them. So, yes, Jaws, the horror movie, is absolutely one of those films for me. So, man, I've had an amazing time with you talking about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, and everything in between. But before I let you go, we always go back to the same question. We're going to bounce back to Child's Play 1988. And what we're going to do here is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, Scott, we're not ranking this movie on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing here is ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Scott, what would your ranking of Child's Play be?
This was a 5 skull. This terrified me to a point where I was a quivering wreck, and my dad, when dads do that thing where you're like, they know you're scared, and I do it as a dad. I know they're scared, but it's like, look, if you get through this, it's gonna be okay.
You're
You
going to
need
work
to,
yourself out.
yeah. And it was that, and then it was weeks after that that I was getting up in the night and going like, I need a drink of water and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this really affected me. And when I look at it now, I look on it with such fondness, which I think is because of all of the things that happened after it, and like that bonding bit with my dad, and then we watched horror movies. This movie holds a really special place for me.
Sure.
But yeah, it terrified the life out of me.
And again, it's I feel the same way. It's my favorite horror franchise, so to say it doesn't mean a lot to me too is the same. So I'd love to hear how much this movie means to you. But I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you're subscribing to the podcast on YouTube and your podcasting platforms. Those links are all down in the description. And follow Scott on social media so you can stay up to date on everything he has coming up in the future. Scott, please don't go anywhere, my friend. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help build up the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.